Hey, daydreamers. So today I am so excited to bring you an episode with Jennifer Moher. Okay, let me back up. Is it Moher or Mower?
Oh, bless your heart for asking.
Oh, I know.
It is Moher. It's like the not so nice way of saying it.
I love it. Moher.
Yeah, fun fact, it's not even my last name. It's actually my ex-husband's last name.
Oh, spicy.
Right? Yeah, my maiden name, I'm totally offsiding your intro, but my maiden name is actually Lawless, which is way more badass.
Hey, I'm Asher James, and in this podcast, I'm going to guide you to all of the tips and mindset shifts that you need to get you out of your dead-end day job and into living your own daydream. I'm so excited that you're choosing to show up for yourself today and to learn and grow as an entrepreneur. Now, let's dive into the episode. Dude.
Right.
Okay, that is so personal, but also like, what's going on there?
Right? We're just going to dig right into it, aren't we?
Okay, let's do it.
I've completely derailed the method of your podcast, the opening of your podcast.
It's so good. Everyone's like, I love how structured your podcast is. And I'm like, well, wait until I have Jen on the show. We're going to throw it all out the window.
Not today. So I mean, basically, I got married really young to my first husband. I've actually been divorced twice. That's a story for another day.
Love that.
I got married really young. And at that time, I obviously formed my business, and Moher just kind of stuck. And I haven't legally changed it back. I've just kept it because I have 2 kids that have the last name. I have a business that's established with that name. And you know how, I don't know, it's like your last name feels like your identity. And I've had it for long enough at this point that it just feels like that's who I am. Like to go back to Lawless feels like almost like I'd be going back to this older version of myself that she's passed on. Like she doesn't exist anymore. So, you know, it's like the old Taylor can't come to the phone. She doesn't exist anymore. So I'm Moher now. And at some point I may change, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's incredible. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's going to be like, if you ever like pivot in the future, it's like you heard it here first. Like, have you said that on any other show before or anything?
Never. No.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think anyone really knows that my actual name is Jennifer Lawless.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool name, but
dude.
I don't know. I at this point, I just can't. I can't change it. I'm too deep in the Moher.
Yeah. The personal brand is strong.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, I want to launch into the show by asking you how you live your daydream. You know, that's kind of my whole goal and theme with this is reaching or just living it, even if you haven't arrived at your end goals, you know, but just how can you start living that daydream right now? So bring me into your life, your daydream, how you spend your time, who you spend it with.
Oh my God, I love this. I love this so much because yesterday I was actually driving and I daydream a lot when I drive. It's like the place where I daydream the most. And I was daydreaming about, there's this house that I really love and I really want to buy it. This has nothing to do with living my daydream, but there's this house and it's this beautiful farmhouse. It's far, far out of my budget. I could never afford it. I mean, maybe one day, but it's like $2.3 million or something wild. But yeah, I was daydreaming and I was mentally walking through the house, thinking about room by room, how I might redecorate it and reorganize it. And then I started thinking about how fun it is to daydream and how it's so childlike. Like there is such a child element to daydreaming. And I don't think adults do it enough just for fun, you know, just like, I think because adults have this mindset of like, well, that's not productive. That's not a productive way of spending our time. It's not based in logic. So why would we do it? And so I think to answer your question, the way I live my daydream is just that. It's by actually daydreaming and being extremely childlike with, you know, a little sprinkling in of responsibility, you know, as is needed. But yeah, I mean, I think I've always wanted to just live an artist life. And that's really hard in today's society, in our world, our Western world. And as a mother as well, with responsibilities and, you know, 3 kids, it's hard to come back to that over and over and over again. But I think I think for the most part, I'm doing it. And I have this, I don't know, this really childlike part of me that just every day I do something that's creative and exploratory. I literally wear headphones everywhere I go, even if I'm in Walmart or the grocery store. I've got headphones on, I'm listening to music. It's like just doing these things that make me feel alive as an artist and creative. I think that's how I'm living my daydream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've always wanted to live like the artist's life.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about what that means
Yeah.
to you.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think one of the, in my opinion, one of the ways of living this artist life is for me not working a 9 to 5, not being confined by schedule. I don't do well with schedule. Even just having this podcast on my calendar, I was like, ooh, oh, that's an obligation.
You should see my Google Calendar.
Oh God.
When my team looks at it, they're like, I don't like that.
Honestly, okay, I am going to pull up my Google Calendar right now. This is why I don't like schedule. This is what my schedule looks like because of 3 kids and multiple different businesses, which I can get into, but This is my schedule.
Oh my gosh.
So this is why I'm like, I avoid any extra,
Yes,
it's like,
yes.
This is the mandatory stuff that I have to do as, a mother and a business owner. But beyond that, it's like, I just want to have expansive, kind of free flowing energy through the day. I want to be able to, and this gets a little bit, I guess, uterusy, but I want to be able to flow with like my own cycle. If I'm ovulating, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, let's get work done. I feel good. I feel sexy. Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
Right. But then on the days where it's like the lining of my uterus is shedding, I don't want to work. And I think in, our modern society, most people have to go to work, even if that's happening. And that sucks. So that's a huge part of it, is just being able to kind of intuitively flow and work when I feel inspired to work. That feels like an artist life. And just having that sense of awe and wonder where, the other day I kind of reminded myself of it. I was walking through the airport and I had music playing. It was beautiful classical music. And I was noticing not so much the obvious beauty, an art gallery is obvious beauty and nature is obvious beauty. But I was walking through the airport and I was looking at just the wall, and it was like man-made, product, but it was so beautiful. And just stopping and noticing those things feels like that creative artist flow. So that's kind of how I would define it.
Yeah, I love that. Dude,
Yeah.
It's so funny, like how inspiring travel is. I know that's cliche, like everyone knows that, but I think it's easy to forget that in your own lived experience, how inspiring travel can be. I just was in Las Vegas for my bachelor party with my best friend, and the amount of just like film photos I was taking around like Caesar's Palace, or like the way that the light was hitting the flamingo, like it's just like, and then now that's informing me about how I want to like light or shoot against different like buildings here in Duluth, and make more videos outside, or composition and like design and the intentionality in the service and the experience. And speaking of like, living the artist life and just like kind of tying that into inspiration all around you. When we were in Vegas, we were at this restaurant and I saw they had this menu and it had these beautiful graphics on it with like a description of the cocktails and stuff like that. And I was like, how cool would it be for that to be my pricing guide?
Yeah.
To have a leather bound menu to have in person at like the studio. So when I'm meeting with people, they can like flip through and have these beautiful, like, drawings and all this stuff. So it's like,
I love that.
There's inspiration everywhere.
Everywhere. You know what? I had a similar experience. I was in Texas, speaking at a workshop, and I treated myself to a date. Like just a solo date. And I do that often because I think
I saw
really
that
important.
on your Instagram and I was like following it. I was like, oh, this is so cool.
It was so lovely, especially when you're in another city. It's like, give yourself one day to just take yourself out on a date. It's like Julia Cameron talks about that in The Artist's Way. She calls it the artist date. And I just kind of treat it as like a date with myself, but it's so... there's something, I don't even know what the word is. It's so indulgent in the best possible way. And so I was doing the same thing. I was gaining all of these insights of things that I could implement in my own business. And this one restaurant I went to, it was called the French Room, and it was in a beautiful old hotel in downtown Dallas. I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but it was beautiful. And it was like a high tea type situation where they serve you tea, and just the attention to detail and the service and the exceeding expectations, the wow factor, like all of that. I was making notes as I was sitting there. I was like, okay, what can I bring into my business to make people feel the way I feel right now in this tea room? It was just so extravagant and
Yeah.
elaborate, and I felt so looked after. It was so
Mm,
inspiring.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So I know you travel around a lot, being a wedding photographer based in Toronto, but also traveling worldwide and doing all these destinations. And I follow along with your work, and I get so inspired, but I also know how important family is for you as
Mhm.
well. So how do you, I don't want to say balance, because I think in entrepreneurship, like there really isn't any balance. Like that's why
Yeah.
we left or didn't go into traditional employment in the first place.
Mhm.
So tell me more about the blending of your creative entrepreneurship and your experience of being a mother.
Yeah. Yeah, I you know what? I love that you kind of stopped on that word balance, because it's so true.
Mm,
And balance almost implies that you're holding two plates in your hand and it's equal 50-50 balance. And that's not really feasible at all times. Like sometimes you have to be 100% in motherhood or fatherhood, and sometimes you have to be 100% in business. And years ago I heard this quote, and oh, I'm so sad I can't remember who said it. It was probably like 10 years ago that I heard this, but she was speaking about work-life sway. And she talked about how you sway back and forth into these roles. And I love that. And that really resonated for me, because I feel like there are days where, yeah, I don't walk into my office. I don't turn on my computer. I barely touch my phone because I'm all in on motherhood on that day. And then other days where it's like, okay, kids are at school. My littlest one is at daycare. This is the day where I can work. So, I mean, there's so many things. There's so many layers to this and so many things that we could talk about. But for one, I was lucky with my older two girls. So I have a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And my two older girls are from my first husband. And when we split up, it was this beautiful, amicable split. And we decided to do a 50-50 schedule where I would have them for half the week and he would have them for the other half of the week. And so it gave me a lot of flexibility and freedom with my schedule. And so I always feel like a little bit of a hack when I talk about, the mothering and running a business, because I had that luxury of like 3 full days where it was just me at home with my computer and I could just work. But what it kind of taught me was that sway, and that maybe like really taking advantage and being efficient within that window. And so
mm,
now my window is a lot smaller because I have Isla, who's 3, and she's with me full time. So my window is a lot smaller, but I had trained myself that when I have the window, I have to use it to the best of my ability. And oftentimes that would mean if I was editing, I would turn off my Wi-Fi on my computer so that I didn't have access to, um, you know, Instagram or Facebook or whatever thing I was wanting to go and procrastinate on. So things like that. Yeah, I just had dedicated work hours. I would give myself goals and then I would give myself rewards. And so I still do that today, where if I kind of make a goal for myself that if by 2 p.m. I've done the work that I'm meant to do, I get to go and have a bath, because baths are like my absolute favorite thing. And I make such a spa experience out of it. I'll bring chocolate in, I'll have a kombucha, I'll like have music. Sometimes I have headphones on. Like it's an experience, but it's my treat for doing my work. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I'm just like thinking like, man, I haven't had like a spa day in a while. I got my team massages recently for our staff retreat, and
Yeah.
I didn't get one for myself. And then my like admin assistant was like, if I don't see one of those on your calendar next week, I'm scheduling you one.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean,
that the self-care is like so important.
absolutely. And if I mean, not everyone has the means to be able to go to a spa or have these,
Absolutely.
extravagant days to themselves. And I fully
Mm.
understand that. But even 1 hour in your bathroom
Yeah.
with like, I have candles in there, like these beautiful pillar candles, and just, and our bathroom is halfway through renovations. Like it is a disaster, but I don't know. I think you can really set the mood. Again, it comes back to kind of giving yourself a date. It's like, how would you act if you were kind of romancing someone in that situation? Like, why are we not doing that with ourselves? You
Classic
know?
Jennifer Moher, just like making your life cinematic and everything.
Yeah, it's the artist life, man. It's like
Seriously.
we can do that. And I have a note in my phone. I don't know what prompted me to write it, but
Yeah.
I was looking, you know how you go through your notes app and like some of the notes are really unhinged. Like you look at it and you're like, what was I thinking? But I was going through and beyond the obvious ones that are like eggs, potatoes, like my shopping list, I see one and all it says is adults are boring. And I was like, whoa, like I was feeling it that day. But I come back to that often. I think that as we get older, and I see it with my kids as well as they're, going through the regular school system, I really see that beautiful, magical creativity just kind of getting beaten out of them. And it's like, I feel like it's my role as a mother to keep that going and foster it and make sure that it stays because I don't know, it's just so boring. It's so boring. Even the clothes that we wear, and I'm just in blue jeans and a turtleneck, but like I don't know, we're just also boring. We need to be more expressive and just experience things. We're on this earth to experience, the range of human emotions and to experience the human experience. And I feel like most people just aren't doing it. They're just numb and I don't know.
There's a lot of waiting. There's a lot of some days. There's a lot
Yeah.
of when this, then that,
Yeah. Totally.
And a big kind of accidental theme in the show is action, especially
Mm,
in like your business. But I mean, it's applicable to your life as well.
yeah.
Again, blending those together. Something I'm trying to do is take all of the things that I love about business that I've developed skills in as well, and trying
Mhm.
to apply that to my personal life
Yeah.
and to like take care of myself better, take care of my relationships, be more
Mhm.
intentional. Um,
I love
so
that.
yeah,
Yeah, there's
yeah.
such good metaphor there, isn't there?
Mm,
Yeah, like the fostering and nurturing the relationships through business, and why are we not doing that in our personal life to the
absolutely.
same extent? It's like we put all of that on the back burner.
Mm.
Oh, I love that. That's
And I
really
think that
cool.
that is the foundation of alchemy, right?
Mhm.
And your founding of this
Yeah.
collective and retreats and just like this group of people supporting each other.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know what alchemy is, bring them up to speed on
Yeah.
what this collective is, who your partner is in it, how you founded the name,
Yeah.
because I know that that's a really fun story there too,
Yeah.
and just what's going on with the Alchemy Collective going into this year and how people can engage with it.
Aw, thank you for asking. That's so
Yeah,
nice. You're just setting me up to be able to market myself.
yeah, right,
You're
right.
the best
And
podcasters.
here's the pitch.
No, alchemy came to be it kind of it's like there were many roads that led to it and they all converged at once. And so it's kind of cool. I had been thinking and dreaming up a retreat experience for years because I've attended many conferences and workshops, and I wanted some sort of overnight situation where we would all just gather and, you know, flow through that creative, childlike, artistic flow state together. And so that was kind of on the back burner. And it's like, I think there's multiple people that say this. I think Rick Rubin says it and Elizabeth Gilbert says it, but it's like the universe is kind of floating above you and they're sprinkling down these ideas. And, it had been kind of hovering over me for a while. And I'm so grateful that it didn't run away and find somebody else. It stayed with me until I was ready to grab it. But, yeah, that was one element. And then my friend Jill, who her name on Instagram is Jillian.wild. She was for years, she was a somatic experiencing coach and a yoga teacher and a women's coach. And we had been hanging out for like an entire summer. And halfway through the summer, she's like, I think we should run something together. I think we should run some sort of a retreat together at some point where I do the wellness side of things, the somatic work, the embodiment work, the yoga, and you do the creativity, the photography, all of that. And so that was kind of floating then at that point. I was like, okay, that meets the other expectation. And then I had this lovely experience. I went out to a workshop in Alberta called the Wildly Retreat or the Wildly Workshop. And it was like 21 women and we were all gathered. And it wasn't so much the education and the shooting that was so powerful. It was the quiet conversations around the campfire that were the most meaningful. And I'm sure everyone can kind of relate to that when they've gone to workshops. It's those, when you go out for lunch with a group of people, that's where you have the really juicy conversations. And so that was like the last spark that I needed. So I went home immediately and I was like, Jill, we're doing it. Like, let's create it. Let's make it. And the name Alchemy was kind of on the back burner as well. I was going to use it for something else. I was going to write a book at one point. Like my brain is just always like, what can we do now? And I love the idea of the definition of the word alchemy, this idea of transformation that is seemingly magical. But there is a formula to it. And that's how we kind of wanted to present alchemy, was this transformation. You come in at point A and we get you to point B through different practices, through creative processes, through embodiment work, and a lot of deep soul work. And yeah, just kind of a mix of the fluffy, floaty stuff as well as the grounded, this is what you can apply to your work kind of stuff. And so that's how it kind of was created. And we ran one last October that was lovely. It sold out. It was 14 women in a cabin in Ontario. And it was just so wonderful. We did cold plunging, yoga. We had a sound bath, like just a lot of really powerful elements came into play. And really the biggest part of it was Jill and I wanted to bring people into our world as best as we could. We wanted to show them what it was like to live inside of our brains, to be, even in our friendship. Just that feeling of, when you're 12 and you've got, a group of best friends and you have sleepovers every night and you talk about your big dreams and you play and you get creative. It's that with photography education. That's basically what it became. So yeah, now we're launching a private Instagram group that's going to kind of mirror the retreat experience, but for a more affordable price. So people can join in and we'll have those same conversations and it will kind of flow in the same way.
I love it. That's so good.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really like powerful for people to have that intentional time to reconnect, between body and soul and creativity and all of that.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to a podcast that you were on with Nathan Chansky, and you were talking about your kind of like seasons of burnout and when you were out of alignment. And so I would love to give you the kind of like floor and just kind of talk to the audience or anyone out there that might be feeling burnt out. Can they connect with your story and how you dug out of it, how you refound your alignment and aligned your actions with your goals and all of that. And last week's episode was all about burnout. So this is kind of like a perfect little part 2 to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So I've been in this industry for 16 years and I have periods of burnout often. I don't think burnout is something where you just solve it and you never feel it again. I think that there are waves of it that we go through. And I think you get better at overcoming it the more that you experience it and find the strategy. And I think finding the patterns of like, why is this happening? And then solving that and avoiding it in the future. But I can definitely speak to, I guess one of my biggest burnout periods was years ago. It was like 2012, 2013. And I took on too much. I think at my peak, I had about 65 weddings booked for that season. And I think I was only charging, I don't know, $1,500 per wedding. Like it wasn't a lot. It wasn't, and that's Canadian dollars. So for Americans, that's like $1,000. Like it wasn't a huge amount. And I was doing way too much. I was also doing engagement shoots for all of those weddings. I had 2 kids at the time under the age of 5 or 4. And I was also the lead in a local musical. Like there was just so much stuff on my plate and I was taking on far too much. And I think there was a part of me that wanted to prove that I could do both, that I could be a business owner and be a mom and have this, social life and be in a musical. And I just maxed out my capacity. And then I went through a divorce, and it was all sort of in this same time frame. And so through the divorce, through that process, it was in the winter months, so I was able to really sit with myself and reflect and think about my priorities. And I really had to put my girls first at that point and slow down. And so I realized a big part of it was that I was doing too much. So the first thing I did was I raised my prices. And then in order to raise my prices, I had to somehow justify that price increase. And so I went through my entire portfolio and I curated the hell out of it. Like, I went through every single image and I was like, is this worth this amount that I'm changing it to? Because I didn't feel that I could just up my rate without doing anything, in addition to that. I wanted to do something that felt like, okay, because I think we need to feel that confidence with our rates, right? It's like you have to feel like, yeah, I'm worth this. So I really sat, I reflected on it. I put together different slideshows. Back then, we didn't have reels. We didn't have these beautiful ways of showing our work that we do now, but I put together slideshows for my website and just ways that I could kind of romanticize my work, make it feel like it was more impactful. I also started taking away anything on my portfolio that I felt like all the other photographers in my area were shooting and could do. So I wanted to only showcase moments that maybe aren't on other people's portfolios, right? Like, I wanted to really try and differentiate myself so that, again, I could justify that price increase. So that was a huge way of kind of working through that burnout. I didn't have as much on my plate. But the second burnout came from, and this is the one that I've noticed over and over and over again that always creeps up. It's this moment where I notice that I am out of alignment because I am out of my authenticity and I'm not being true to myself. I'm trying to be like other people. I'm trying to be like other photographers. I'm trying to keep up with all the social media trends and things that aren't even really me, like they're not necessarily on brand for me as a human, but I feel like I have to do them. And so I get caught up in those cycles. And that is what leads me to massive burnout. And so I've experienced some. I experienced a little one recently, and it was I've just finished actually creating an Instagram course. And it kind of relates back to all of this. And the idea of it is, and it's so ironic that I fell into this cycle while creating a course that is all about silencing the algorithm, silencing what everybody else is doing and being authentic, because I started researching other people's Instagram courses and I was like, okay, what are they including? I've got to make sure that I include that. And then I had this moment where I was like, Jen, what are you doing? You're literally doing what you're teaching not to do. Like, stop.
Isn't it so funny how easy it is to slip into that?
Absolutely. Yes. So I changed the majority of the curriculum of it because I was like, this is not the point. The point is that we're meant to silence what everyone else is doing and present ourselves and come to this app with, I don't know, as ourselves, authentically as artists. And I was doing it as this like weird sort of weird version of myself that isn't me. So yeah, that it was great that I had that moment. I have a business coach and I spoke to her about it. And I just said, like, I feel like I don't want to do lead funnels. I don't want to do these pitches that you're supposed to do to market this. I literally just want to go face on camera and say, like, hey, this is an invitation to silence the noise, to get rid of the algorithm, to just focus on creating art and treating your Instagram like it's your own personal art gallery. And so we came up with a way better plan that feels more authentic. But yeah, that's kind of been my burnout journey. And my friend Jill and I, we actually recorded a podcast episode about burnout as well, because I have the Wonderist podcast, and that was another crazy idea that came to me from the universe.
And I love it. It's obviously going to be linked below,
Thank
and
you.
would love for people to check it out. Those episodes are there's so much just like power and vulnerability in them that you share and your guests. That's just, it's really
Aw,
valuable. So yeah,
thank
that'll
you.
definitely be in the show notes for people to check out.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's like assigned homework, actually. Like,
Yeah.
not even, don't just check it out. That's like, go do it, please.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we recorded one. I mean, I think I only have 6 episodes on there, so there's not a lot. But
Same.
right? Slowly but surely,
Yes,
we'll
exactly.
get there. I'll get to my 100 at some point.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, Jill is really good. She's very knowledgeable with burnout because she's done, energy work and somatic healing and all sorts of embodiment type things. So she's really well trained in it. And she says that burnout as like a definition is when your what was it? It was like an input and output. Your output is greater than your input. So you're putting more out and you're not getting enough in. So you're not getting enough of this
Mm,
like goodness and nurturing in, and you're just output, and you become depleted because you don't have enough coming in. And so she actually says, because a lot of people feel like when they're in that zone of burnout, the biggest piece of advice is to actually add something to your plate, add something of value, add something that will nurture you. And there's a lot of people that feel like sticky about that because they're like, I can't possibly add one more thing to my plate. Even self-care, like I can't possibly schedule a massage for myself, for instance, or I can't possibly take an hour out of my day to have a relaxing bath because I have too much on my plate. And she says that is actually the medicine that you need. It's adding that one thing when it feels like you can't possibly, like you're going to burst. That one thing is the input that you need to balance the input output. So yeah, I feel so strongly about that. It's like, take a walk, put on your headphones, take a walk, stop trying to output all the time. So that's the simplest terms, I suppose, of
yeah.
burnout.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's such a huge topic to cover, and there's so many different facets of it.
Yeah.
And I love that you're creating an Instagram like course on creating content that is more aligned with your values
Yeah.
and what lights you up and gets you excited about. Like creating content
Totally.
that you would want to watch. And I think that that's like the biggest trend I've noticed in marketing going into 2024 is that people are getting tired of just like the like little behind the scenes clip with some text on the screen and
Mhm.
it's 5 seconds and it's like
Mhm.
scroll down to learn more. And it's like those have a time and place, sure.
Yeah.
They work for a reason.
Yep.
But I think people are hungry for deeper, richer content, and they're wanting to go deeper with specific people that they connect with,
Yeah.
not just this greater umbrella of all of this content that's out there, but
Yep.
like finding someone that they connect with and just like really diving deep into everything that they have to give and teach
Yeah.
and put out there. So
Absolutely.
tell me more about this Instagram course, some other
Yeah.
things that you have coming up. Like what are you dreaming up that's coming soon for you in the future? Or maybe that's a little far out that you're like, you know what, I want to
No.
manifest and make this happen right now,
I'm always dreaming.
I know.
Yeah, so the Instagram course, it came about because I struggled with it, and I've spoke to so many other photographers that struggle with it, but it's that idea of it's the moments where you're like where you're sitting in front of your phone, right? You've got your phone in your hand and you have a picture that you're happy with. You took it at last week's wedding and you're like, "Okay, this is great." And then you go to post it and you're like, "But what do I say? What do I
Yeah.
write? What's
Yeah.
the caption? Like what do I write?" And then there's this fear of like, "Oh, I sound too basic, or this sounds boring, or I think I have to say something better." And so you freeze and you don't do anything. And the same could be posting the photo. You have it there, you're ready, and then you think like, "Oh, it's not good enough," and you just don't post it. And so it's kind of digging into like, well, why? Why? Who are you thinking is watching you? First of all, who do you think this like judgmental, critiquing mob like audience is that's actually judging you this hard? Who do you think that is? Like, there's no one there. If they're following you, they're not following you to judge you and critique you. They're following you because they genuinely love what you're doing. And if they are there to judge you and critique you and shit talk you behind your back, that's none of your business. Like
Oh,
it just
absolutely.
does not matter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one element of it. And then just also well, I don't know. I feel like I should post this because, this is what other people post. Like this is kind of trendy. So I should post this. And then, I should do a flash photo of a cake because that's kind of cool right now. And it's just all the I shoulds. And we're outsourcing our ideas and it's like we're outsourcing our brain, it's
Yeah.
like we're looking to everybody else to see what we're supposed to do. And not enough of us are going inward and thinking, well, what do I actually love? And so the course really examines that. It dives fully into it. There's tons of homework on really how to show up in a way that it's actually you and you don't feel like this weird imposter or like there's 5 different versions of you when you're posting to Instagram. Um, there's this quote from the movie Pig. It's such a wonderful movie. And there's this moment where Nicolas Cage is speaking to this other individual in a restaurant, and he
Yeah.
says,
It's the head chef, right?
"Oh God, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
good. This
Oh, yeah.
scene." And he's basically saying like the critics aren't real. So he's speaking to the head chef who's like just all consumed with this fancy fine dining restaurant. And Nicolas Cage leans in really close and he goes, this isn't real, right? The critics aren't real. The reviews aren't real because you're not real, because you haven't shown them who you are. And that's how I feel about a lot of us on Instagram. I think we're showing up in this way that isn't truly who we are. And so the Instagram course is really meant to, I don't know, teach you how to turn your Instagram into essentially your own personal art gallery, to feel like it's, an art gallery in New York. How would you design that art gallery? What would it look like? What would it smell like? What would the music be that's playing? And to really treat it as that. So that's that.
When can I sign up?
Oh my
Because
God.
I'm in. I want to be there.
Yeah. So I'm actually recording it after we get off this call. So what is today? Today, for those listening on different days, today is Tuesday, January 30th. So this is my accountability to myself. This is going to be a huge accountability because when this episode comes out, I best be having it launched. So I'm recording today. So the whole thing will be recorded. I'm hoping to launch it next week. So early February. Oh my God. So if you're listening and it's late February and I haven't launched it, you better send me a message on Instagram.
Jump in, make a little like video message and just be
Right?
like, hey, so I'm waiting.
Oh my God. Best accountability ever.
Seriously. And this episode is slated to come out on Monday. So like almost a week from now.
Oh,
So
good Lord. All right.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's going to launch
It's
this week
happening.
then, folks.
Let's do it.
No pressure.
I love it. I love it.
Oh my goodness.
What other things are you like dreaming of going into this year, going into the future? Just what is lighting you up and inspiring you right now?
Aw, I love, like, you're so sweet. I just love that is the way that your brain works, the structure for this podcast. It's just so beautiful and it's so dreamy. And I feel like more people need to be talking about this and having these conversations. And, rather than like, what do you do for work? Where'd you grow up? What school did you go to? It's like, what are your dreams? Like, what is your biggest daydream? I love this. It's just wonderful.
I've tried to make a very intentional point in my life to stop asking people, like when I meet them, like, what do you do?
Absolutely.
Where do you work? What do you do for work? And it's
Yeah.
just like at the beginning of the show, I'm just like, tell me more about your daydream. How do you spend your time? Who do
Yeah.
you spend it with? Right? Like that, I think is a much better anchor that's going to get a much better conversation.
Yeah.
It's going to lead into good conversation with
Absolutely.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that question too, who do you spend it with? That's such a great question because, oh man, as I get older, so I turned 40 this year, and as I get
Congrats. So
oh,
excited for you.
thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. But as I get older, I'm realizing that I don't have the capacity for the plethora of friends that I had when I was younger. It's like I would have so many friends. And again, I think there's a bit of burnout vibes that come from that.
Mm.
And so I've been really intentional about curating my entire life over the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years. And curating my friends is a really big part of that. It's like really thinking on who's who's in your front row? Who are the people that are going to be applauding for you when you succeed? Who's going to be there when you fail, when things don't work out, when you're upset? Like, who's in your front row? And what I was starting to realize was that I had a lot of friends who weren't in the front row. They were kind of in the back row, and they were watching. And you see it on social media a lot too, where it's like they're watching you, but they never engage with your posts. But you see them engaging with other people's posts, but they're not actually ever saying anything to you until you have some sort of like a failure. And then they're like, oh, that's too bad. So like weird things like that. I'm just like, I don't have time for that. Like, I only want front row friends.
Yes. Yeah. I love that.
I just don't have energy for anything other
I
than
love
that
all of
because
like
of
with your
kids.
theater background, like all of the
Yeah.
theater metaphors. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Yeah.
100%. Yes. It's like, yeah, I've got my 3 kids, I've got my partner, my parents and my brother, and then I've got 2 or 3 really close friends. And that's my max capacity for sure. Can you hear my dog barking in the background?
I love it. Yeah, it's great. That's part of why I got a studio, was so that I could like escape. We have 3 cats, a dog, and a bearded dragon.
Whoa, that's so great.
It's so many.
I love that.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah.
like your family.
And they are
That's
my little
so
family. I love it.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, my
So
dog's
that's who
going
I
wild.
spend my time with.
Can you hear it? He's going crazy.
Is he? Oh my gosh.
He turns into a wolf sometimes. He's just like he's a golden doodle, but sometimes he like just acts like a wolf and he just starts to howl. It's great.
Dude, my dog is a standard poodle, but she looks like a golden
Oh,
doodle. So they're like
really?
twins. Yeah.
I love doodles.
If I'm ever like in the Toronto area with her, like little doodle date.
Yes, I love that.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and fun fact, I'm actually like an hour and a half north of Toronto. I feel
Oh,
like such a
yeah?
hack whenever I'm like, I'm Toronto based.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually in a little small town north of Toronto.
I love it.
Yeah, so you can come and visit. There's lots
I
of
love it.
trees and lakes and it's lovely.
Yeah. What a creative hub that like the Toronto area is in general. Like this is a completely off script of like what I had planned, but I think would be it would be a lovely little, I don't know, like B-side to the episode, you know? Tell me about like how much that area, you know, whether it's home or the Toronto area or just, you know, Ontario in general. Tell me, like, how do you find inspiration? Tell me about your experience with the community there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so one of the things I love about Toronto specifically is the food. Like, I think we have some of the best restaurants in Toronto. And so that's a huge thing. And food can be so inspiring as well. Like, just like you said, the menu and then the way that you're treated in the restaurant, the aesthetic of the restaurant, the music that's playing, the food itself and the presentation, the texture. Like, there's so many elements that can be seen as kind of romantic and inspiring and beautiful. But I don't know, man. Like, we've got, as far as beyond Toronto, like, I just find the lakes, the forest areas, the national parks, like, we have provincial parks. So we have so much beauty in this area. And I only recently started camping a lot more. I didn't grow up camping. And I feel like if you didn't grow up camping with your family, it's kind of like, it's a weird thing to do as an adult, but I have a group of friends that are really into camping. And so I've done a lot of it lately. And it's just been, I have sat in awe, just staring at the lakes and the trees and all of it. It's beautiful. And the winter, like having the snow, I don't know. I just love it. I feel like this is the worst answer ever.
No. There's a magic to it. The reason I ask is
is.
because I don't know if you know this, but I'm based in Duluth, Minnesota.
Yep.
So just over on the other side of Lake Superior.
Yep.
And I would imagine, again, I haven't been to Toronto, but I would imagine that we find inspiration from very similar things,
I think so.
very similar biomes, very similar, being on the lake, like the lake is literally like a quarter of a mile away from me right now.
Yeah.
So like that is just so cool and inspiring. And it's such a diverse landscape as well.
Yeah.
I know that you have a lot of work, and you talked about this at the Unrealistic workshop, using Lake Ontario or Lake Erie as a like a set piece to a larger story that maybe involves an ocean,
Yeah, absolutely.
and all of the different stories and things that you can create there, like putting a note in a bottle. I know that you've done a
Yeah,
session on that where like
totally.
your client was like writing a letter to their younger selves or older selves.
Yeah.
Just so like beautiful, like the tie-in between the land and the water and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
I draw a lot of inspiration from that too.
Oh, that's so cool. So, side note here on Duluth, the only thing that I know about Duluth is from the TV show Fargo, because
Absolutely.
I know that one of the seasons I think is based in Duluth, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it was actually filmed here. If it was
Okay.
shot today, it probably would be, because the film industry here in Duluth is growing, which is really
Really?
exciting. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. They're
cool.
trying, like, there's this big push to make it like the next Atlanta, the next Toronto, because there's a lot of
Wow.
filmmaking in Toronto as well. So yeah, we're going to see a lot more coming. And there was a Hallmark movie that shot here last spring that was actually shot here at our studio,
Whoa.
which was really cool.
That's
So it's called
cool.
Rescuing Christmas. Little plug.
Check it
It,
out.
it's on Hallmark Movies now.
Link in bio.
Yes, exactly. But it's just so cute. Like all of these movies that are being made here now, from like rom-coms, like Hallmarky style things, to like horror films. Like it's really
Wow.
cool. Yeah,
That's so cool. It's so fun, like, when you're in, a town that maybe you grew up in or that you live
yeah,
in, there's, like, certain movies that you're like that they're, like, the claim to fame, like, they happened here. I think
absolutely.
we had, like, maybe 3 big ones in Peterborough. Peterborough is the town that I live in, and one of them
Awesome.
was, Urban Legends. I think it was
Mm,
Urban Legends Final Cut, which is from, like, I don't know, the early 2000s, and then there was
yeah.
a movie with Bruce Willis, was it called Jumper or Looper? No, Jumper? That's the
Looper.
Was it
Yep.
Looper?
Yep.
Yeah, it was Bruce Willis, and was Samuel L. Jackson in that?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure,
Okay, well,
but
anyway,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt played the younger version of him.
yes, yeah, so I'm pretty sure I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the movie, and it was, like, such a big thing, like, everyone was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god." And yeah, we've had a couple, and fun fact, I lived in I had an Airbnb years ago. It was a house, so we ended up selling it. It was
Hmm.
Dustin's house, and then we conglomerated our life together. But we had it as an Airbnb very briefly, and there was actually a film crew that came to check it out for a movie. They were going to use it for this movie, and they didn't end up doing it. But it was so cool
Mm,
just to see the process of how they scout the houses, and you know,
yeah.
they were checking it out. It was pretty cool.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I think I want to wrap things up there. Well, not even
Yeah.
want to. I don't. We could talk all day, but for the sake of keeping podcasts under an hour, I think
Yeah.
this is a appropriate place to tie things up. How can people connect more with what you have going on, and how can people like just get into your universe a little more?
Aw, that's such a nice way of putting it. I mean, the best way and kind of the central hub of everything is just my Instagram, which is at Jennifer Moher. And it's, yeah, mother without the T, Moher. For anyone wondering how to spell it.
I love it.
Yeah, that's probably the best way.
Amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on
Thank
the show today. It's been
you.
an absolute honor, and so excited that we got to chat more.
Thank you so much. This was great.